Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Recruitment Reality Podcast. This week I'm joined by a relatively new person in my network, Alex Walker from SaaS Leads. Super excited to have a chat with you, Alex, and hear a little bit more about you, the business that you're in, but also, I guess, your whole past in recruitment. You've had some pretty great jobs with some pretty cool companies, some very well-known brands. So really keen to see how you think the kind of reality of recruitment has evolved over time. So rather than me give an introduction to your background, to your business, it'd be great if I could hand over to you and we could hear a little more, really.
Hello, very happy to be here. So I'm Alex Walker, currently Head of Talent Acquisition for SaaS Leads. So my history of recruitment, I suppose, I've spent 9 years in recruitment, which always sounds extremely wild when I say it. But I had started off with Reed as a 360 recruiter, recruited across kind of office staff, high level interim procurement and supply chain, and ended up moving into talent acquisition teams with them and kind of moved around a lot with them, recruited a lot of their recruitment staff across EMEA and APAC. Actually lived in Singapore for a little bit with them, and then kind of did various different roles. So I've recruited kind of high volume campaigns. I've recruited sales professionals across many of those years. And I also worked for willo.video as their head of talent acquisition, which is where I kind of helped them scale as a tech business as well, which was really exciting. I went to work for a startup called Fathom, and there I was working across kind of EMEA and Americas to help scale their commercial functions and tech functions. And, they got acquired by Pearson, which kind of changed the landscape there. And that's when I came to SaaS Leads. So my current role at SaaS Leads is to help recruit students for our academy. And I'll talk a little bit about what SaaS Leads does in a second. And, kind of in the future, hopefully help SaaS Leads scale as a business.
Amazing. And so tell us more about SaaS Leads. What's the I hate to say it, but what's the value proposition of the business?
Yeah. So we recruit sales teams for businesses. So we primarily focus on tech businesses, but we do have some other kind of B2B clients that use us. So we essentially recruit for sales development representatives, so SDRs. We offer a 12-week sales academy that students can go on, and they complete this academy on site with the client. So we teach them, various different skills that they're going to need to be good SDRs. So that could be social selling, cold calling, email outreach, sales strategy, all sorts of things thrown in there. And they're taught a mixture of kind of classroom teaching, so virtual classrooms, workshops, a lot of coaching. So they each have a dedicated sales coach that helps brush up their skills, as well as kind of quizzes and things, to assess their learning and make sure they're taking things in. So we're endorsed by the Institute of Sales Professionals, so hopefully we do know what we're teaching, and we know that the academy is good, and the students qualify leads, and they generate pipeline for the businesses that they work with, and they, book qualified meetings. At the end of the 12 weeks, the client hopefully is impressed, and they would then take the student on as a permanent SDR in their business. So where we're slightly different from other businesses is that we pay the salary for the first 12 weeks. So the client, I suppose, has a slightly lower risk and a bit more assurance that they can get real value add out of the students during their time in the academy.
Amazing. And had you worked in graduate recruitment before, Alex, or not?
So I actually started on the Reed graduate scheme, and so I was kind of heavily involved in that and kind of building that kind of from within. And then a lot of the recruitment that I did within Reed, the recruitment consultants that they bring on are early talent. So they're early stage people who want to get into sales and build their careers. So although my job title hasn't reflected kind of early talent leads or anything like that, we've been heavily involved in, those spaces and generating pipeline there.
Awesome. But you also said that you'd done headhunting, all sorts of different stuff
I've done everything under the sun. I really have.
In Singapore as well. So, which is it? It's funny, isn't it? Singapore is a really common place to find a expat recruiter. What? Just a random question. Why is that? Why do expats go to Singapore to be recruiters? I know Australia as well is a huge, market for such.
I mean, I think for Singapore, it's the low tax. You can earn a lot of money out there, and it is an amazing lifestyle. The opportunities to travel out there are just incredible. I think that's really attractive, and it's a strong financial centre, and there's a lot of money to be made. So I think that's attractive for Singapore, and I think having recruited for Australia, a lot of English people are attracted to there because of the lifestyle. It's slightly different from Singapore, but you always hear good things about it. It's a very beautiful place to live, and the weather is a ton better. So
I don't know what you're talking about. It's 40 degrees here last week.
I know, it's gone. It was freezing cold yesterday. I thought, okay, summer's over. We've had our 2 days.
It's absolutely mental because I just keep thinking about all of the climate people who will be saying, well, it only lasted a day. That's not global warming. And you're just like, oh my goodness, literally the whole country was on fire. Please don't. It is now cold.
But at least we
didn't
melt.
We didn't melt.
Our skin didn't melt, so that was good.
Yeah. I was worried that all the roads would completely melt, but it's crazy, really. But there you go. So I appreciate the weather is definitely better, and there is a real shortage of recruitment talent, right? That's the other thing, which is a bit weird. Okay, so and which do you prefer, like high end or graduate talent? Obviously, I have recruited more senior salespeople for the business, but as a recruiter, I've only really done graduates in the past, high volume.
I think I'm going to be really annoying here and sit on the fence, because I think each comes with its specific challenges, and I think each of those are really interesting. And I think for me, if I've got an opportunity to problem solve and try and figure out the best way to do something, that's what I enjoy doing, and trying to figure out how to get around each of them. So I think as long as there's an interesting challenge in recruitment, I'm interested.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the good thing about SaaS Leads is actually that so predominantly you'll be hiring grads, or students, should I say, into the academy, but also as a growing business, you're going to have to eventually headhunt people too and be responsible.
I think with SaaS Leads, though, I suppose the ethos is that we are kind of trying to democratize the sales industry. So we don't just want it to be as it has been, what class or what privilege you have, or your ethnicity, or anything else that comes into it that would mean that yes, you're a cookie cutter SDR that goes into these businesses. What we're trying to do is try and put more of an emphasis on opening that market out, so that anybody who has got the right attributes, so whether they've got that grit, that resilience, and that coachability, the ability to communicate, all of those people would be able to go through our academy and come out as a good SDR. So it's an interesting challenge, because we want to open it out to much more than just being about grad recruitment. There's huge untapped markets that people aren't focusing on, and we want to be able to figure out how best to partner with those and get them into the academy.
Yeah, it's almost like a non-apprenticeship, really, isn't it? Especially the way that your academy actually works, when they work for you for 3 months and then move over. So very interesting. So at the moment, there's rumblings of difficulty in the market. Everybody's talking about a recession coming, and then other companies are talking about most jobs ever filled and all sorts of stuff. It's always the case when things like this are rumbling. What's the biggest challenge that you're seeing in the market at the moment? Is it still candidate side, or are clients being more demanding?
I would definitely say that what we're seeing is definitely caution in the market. So we've got a lot of clients who are super interested in the proposition, really want to get things moving, but they want to wait until September, not just because of holiday season. I think a lot
they're
of
all on
people,
their yachts.
and everyone's just barbecuing and enjoying melting and trying to survive. But I think there's a lot of people want to ride out this kind of downturn or perceived downturn, whatever it might be, before committing. So I think it's, if you follow any of our SDRs on LinkedIn, they're always posting, and that's a reflection of what they're seeing for sure.
It's interesting. I mean, personally, I think the tech sector is just having a reset, really, where a lot of the big brands that you sort of heard of that have got, hundreds of millions of pounds worth of investment have been given that money not really needing it. And they had to spend it, and the easiest place to spend it often is on people. So they're kind of just resetting. But if we've learned anything from people resetting in the pandemic, it's 2 minutes later they need the people again because they reset too much or whatever it may be.
And you always need the sales teams to sell your tech as well. So I think we're able to work with a really wide range of clients. So it could be anything from you start it with one sales manager who doesn't have the time to train and wants to kind of do that recruitment and training piece while they still hunt for business, as well as some larger enterprise clients who maybe have more established sales teams, but they want to grow them and they want to make sure that there's real standardized, high quality training in place for those sales teams as well. So we do offer, training only packages to companies too. It's not just that we have to do the recruitment too. So that's something that we offer. But I think the next couple of months we'll see a completely different story, and things definitely start to pick up again.
Yeah, I think the reset's either happening or happened, and I think a lot of companies will probably just take the opportunity to go, oh well, if they've done it, we'll probably do it as well. In terms of the chopping 10% of people or whatever. So and then blame it on a recession, which isn't really happening. Who knows? I'm no economist. I did get an A in economics at A level, but that was a long time ago. And
that's impressive, though.
Yeah, I've forgotten it all now. But
I did it at university. I passed, but I was just thought, I'd leave this to the pros.
I wish I'd done it at uni. Instead, I got a Desmond in geography. It was a total waste of time, but there you go.
Well, I will clarify. I did a module of economics
that's
a business
very
management
different.
degree. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to mislead.
Thanks for clarifying.
The audience here. Yeah.
Everybody's there doing a background check on you, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, very funny. So one thing that you said in the when you were talking about the kind of difference and challenging the status quo of cookie cutter salespeople, which I can totally understand, and I think people are catching on, to the fact that you don't have to be a university graduate of a certain ilk to be successful. But one thing I'm keen to hear about is, with the perception of sales and with the challenges of getting talent, how have you sort of developed your employer brand to enable that? Because it's not. I mean, it's not just employer brand. It's basically your culture as a business is your employer brand. So how have you cultivated that to encourage that broad spectrum of potential candidates to apply?
Yeah. I think it's very much a work in progress. So we've spent a lot of time quite recently as well actually thinking about this, because we've kind of got an interesting proposition of not just the employer brand for the students on the academy and what that looks and feels like for them, but also the employees within the business at SAS Leeds. And so you've got to find a way to balance the two and see what the kind of key differences are in the propositions between them. And we've spent a lot of time speaking to every single person in the business. We've spoke to, leaders within the business for the internal employer brand and tried to listen to, what they like about working for us and what we could do better on and where we need to improve. And we've kind of collated those into themes. And I think some of the things that have come out for us is that where you need to identify where there's a disconnect between what you're saying is your employer brand and what it feels like to work in your business and what the actual reality is of that. And I think we are doing some really exciting work kind of starting from this week to kind of reevaluate, I suppose, from an internal perspective, what that looks like. And over the next kind of 2 to 3 months, really trying to, improve that and make that better. And keep doing the good things that people enjoy. So I think there's definitely some changes coming there. And then I think with the student side, we've given the whole academy a real big revamp recently and kind of restructured it so it's a lot clearer, a lot easier for the students to follow. We've got Will, who's our CEO, Will Koning, who has a very strong background history in sales. He's doing all of the teaching personally, and then he's supported by the SDR coaches in the business, and they take each student and kind of refine those skills. So we've been talking to a lot of them about what their experience is there, and we've also implemented an applicant tracking system called Team Taylor, which integrates with Willow. And just little plug.
Yeah, thanks for the segue.
Anytime. And that has like an inbuilt net promoter score NPS survey that you can send out to candidates, and we're starting to build our data around the whole onboard, starting from them trying to find the job through the whole process. What is that journey like to them? What do they see as being our employee kind of value proposition and everything? So it's all very interesting and all very kind of a work in progress. It's not that we've kind of done any key things, but I think the first step is to ask and to listen and really listen, and then start to build on that.
Yeah, I mean, having the right culture is not a momentous launch day or whatever.
No.
It is a series of micro actions.
Absolutely.
Almost, that actually make a difference, and
absolutely.
And yeah, so it's really interesting. Just touching on Team Taylor, and obviously talking about the backgrounds and how you assess individuals. Do you use any of their sort of anonymization tools at any point in the process yet? Have you tried that out?
So we are going to start with this. I think this is something that we're quite interested in looking at, because currently we use Willow to do the kind of video interview stage of the selection process. So the students answer 3 questions, and that's then sent to the client. And it looks very nice for the client. The client can see how they come across, but you're instantly introducing bias there, because the client can see them and they can make their assumptions and judgments. And so if we did use the anonymization part of Team Taylor, it would instantly kind of get undone by them seeing the Willow video. So we're having a real think about this and how potentially we either use Willow to build a different selection process. So it could be that we use the voice note function to get the students to pitch something to the clients, or we use the kind of, there's like a written function. I don't know why I'm explaining it to you, but to the audience, there's a written function that you can ask questions, they can type the answer, they can upload files, and we could do something. Maybe they do the outreach email to the client, something like that. And so maybe we're actually speaking to a lot of the clients and finding out what they would like to see in the process, and figure out how we can best put something forward that eliminates that bias as much as possible, because they're still going to interview the candidates and they still get a meet and greet with them before they offer them a place on site with them. So it's definitely something that we're very keen to figure out how to best use.
It's really interesting, because I think you have to everything should be done in a balance. Obviously we're a video business, and I do believe that video, you can be biased when you watch a video, but video doesn't introduce bias, if that makes sense. It's the individual that's being biased, not the video. The video is the same person that they're going to meet face to face. So I've always believed that video is more about holding people accountable to the decisions that they make, and having a consistent approach that you can look back and say, look, these people gave the two same answers, they look very different, and you're always choosing the one that looks like you, sounds like you, went to your school, kind of thing. Why is that? And being able to actually challenge in that kind of safe way, if that makes sense, rather than based on hearsay around an actual face-to-face interview.
Yeah, and actually we've got some really clear examples of that, funnily enough, with some clients where they'll push back to say that they want diversity, they want a 50-50 gender split between the candidates that they're seeing, which we've supplied. So we've met their criteria, and and they've actually not interviewed any of the females sent. And so it's really powerful to say, well, actually, it's definitely not in our process.
Yeah, it's not the pipeline; it's the decisions. So I think I like the idea of having stages of anonymization. So beginning, like CV, just take everything out of it that could identify by or be biased against, because you spend such a little amount of time identifying whether somebody's going to be good or not based on a CV, that all you're doing is reading the name. And can I read the name? Nope, not interested. It's that kind of bias that is incredibly dangerous. The kind of system one thinking, fight or flight, etc. So I like the idea of removing that. I really like the idea of having the kind of voice note element as, again, a sort of a blind test of communications and capability, but then I still like seeing how somebody uses their body language. So I think you're going to see an evolution of the way people use just technology, not necessarily just Willow, but in that kind of staged anonymization up to the point where, you're then holding people accountable and making the right decisions.
And we don't actually use the CV to present to the client. We build our own profile for the client, for the candidate, to present to the client each time. So that's super important for us.
CVs are dead. They should just be gone. They're horrific judgment tools of anybody's capability. Yeah,
I agree.
Self-written, which means they're either full of BS or they're not full of BS. And therefore, you miss out. It's like either I'm an honest person and I'm telling you what I'm actually capable of, but not showing you my potential, or I'm a dishonest person showing you everything that I could be that I'm not. So very interesting things, CVs. What? Obviously, you've worked in recruitment for 9 years, and you're now working with people literally joining the talent pool, which is great. What have you noticed about the sort of changes in candidate attitudes over that 9 years? And specifically, what are you noticing about this kind of group that's really important to them?
I think in terms of things that are seriously important to them, salary and benefits, it's still key. And I think people forget about this. I think we're seeing that values and interests need to match a lot more, but it's definitely not over above salary and benefits. You still have to be competitive. Typically we advise clients that they should be paying between 30 and 35, plus maybe like a 10-15k bonus for the SDRs on a permanent basis. And it's one of the first questions that the students will ask when we're talking to them about the permanent opportunities at the end of the academy. The other thing that I cannot stress enough is, flexible working. They all want either hybrid, mainly hybrid, but also remote. And we've found that if clients, want to prescribe 5 days a week in the office, we cannot kind of find enough talent that they can fill those vacancies in a real timely manner. There has to be some flex. And I think what it boils down to is that they do see the value of being in the office and they want to interact with their team. They want to learn from them, particularly in sales. They want those opportunities to hear people make mistakes and hear people do best practice. But they want to be trusted to make those decisions about, when it's important to be in. So if the whole team's in, they can interact with them, great. If they're having to sit in an empty office with no one around them, it's just, exactly. And, so they're being a lot more, I suppose, assertive with us in what they're looking for, which is quite refreshing. I think what has changed, and I don't know if this is just part and parcel maybe of the business that I'm currently in, but it feels that, the students that we talk to, they really want to listen to us as trusted kind of advisors about how to approach things and which businesses they should work for and be interested in. And I think that feels quite different. If I think about how I started kind of 9 years ago, it's a very different market, but, it's recruitment and sales, there's a lot of similarities in the way that they're perceived as industries and the types of people that work in them, which just, I think, that seems to, I don't know if it's just because I'm in more early talent now, but they really want to listen. And we do, you have to spend a lot of time building those relationships anyway with the candidates, because they do have lots of options and they know that they have lots of options. So the level of questioning that they'll give you is, a lot deeper than normal.
So there's a few things. I think generally, if you're a good graduate recruiter, which obviously from what you've just said, it sounds like they are. But if you're a good graduate recruiter, I don't know. I've never been recruited by you. But if you're a good graduate recruiter, generally the grads are always asking your opinion on, what opportunities you should go for. I think the challenge as a graduate recruiter is being honest about which opportunities they should go for, really.
Absolutely.
And not be driven by, whatever else.
Yeah, and I think that's, why we actually chose to switch to using Willow is because before we used Willow, the kind of interview process for the students was really time consuming for the recruiters and the students. So it would be kind of a 30 to 40 minute interview that would be recorded. It was, obviously labour intensive for everyone involved. And if the clients were having to review kind of 4 profiles, it would take them a couple of hours to review those 4 profiles. It just wasn't good for anyone. And so switching to Willow is, it's a lot easier for the candidates, but it's a lot quicker for the clients to review as well, which saves them time. And we're able to invest the time that we would have spent recording those half-hour sessions in building the relationships and making sure that the students are coached through the process. And, if they need to re-record their Willow interview because they're doing something odd, or they're spinning on their chair, or they've got mad lighting or something like that, we actually can spend that time with them now, which is really important to us. And we've seen such a massive difference in kind of the success of the candidates and being able to score them, more consistently as well. That was really important to us because we didn't get that with the interviews previously. Now we have a scoring matrix that correlates to the star rating on the Willow interview. So that's
which removes bias in itself.
Yes.
So that's the point of consistency. The other thing that I just like that you said was around hybrid work, and I just really hope that people get the bloody message soon. Basically,
I'm like this, please.
If you want people to go in to the office 5 days a week, but you still want to get talent, make it hybrid, but then make the office a place people want to go to 5 days a week. It's not fucking difficult to understand, particularly. Like, if people feel like every day they get value when they go in the office, they're not paying through the nose to get there, all of that stuff. They feel the need to get in there because it's a nice environment, they've got all of their mates there, and actually they've got fear of missing out from not going to the office, then they'll go to the bloody office. But if you force people, they're always going to be begrudgingly, the art of diplomacy is letting somebody else have your idea. There's no difference in that between, the art of getting somebody into the office as making them think it was their idea. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not difficult. And equally, it really doesn't matter anymore because if you are going to mandate 5 days a week in the office, I just think you're going to end up with such a minute talent pool that you'll end up changing anyway. So
often what we find happening is, clients will, and it doesn't happen very often, but some clients have the requirement of 5 days, and just over time as they go through the process and we keep explaining and, even offering the candidates that we have available that are available for hybrid or even available for remote, we've had a client recently that was stuck on 5 days and eventually took on someone who was completely remote because the talent was so good.
There you go.
And I think but it takes sometimes a lot of time for that education, and all of that time is time that, the students could have been on site building pipeline for their sales team.
And the other thing is, they don't have to be hybrid from day one. You can go, it's a month, with us, just quite intense, 5 days a week. But after that, it will be hybrid. And actually, in that month, again, if you make it so they want to go to the office every single day, lo and behold, when you switch to hybrid after a month, most likely, other than the times they want to bunk off early, which personally I don't care about as long as they're doing their job, especially in sales, then they'll come to the office. So it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem like a difficult thing to understand, but for a lot of people it is. Obviously, I'm not talking about jobs where you have to be there to, build something or, pack something or whatever it may be. I'm talking about jobs you can do remotely. So just to finish up, I think I might be springing this on you, Alex, but if you had any tips for either recruiters in the current market or for grads, what tips would you, not grads, sorry, for entry-level individuals? You can tell I worked for Pareto for 11 years. Yeah. What if you had any advice, what would it be?
Yeah. I think for the recruiters, it would be to take time to make sure that you have an efficiency of process. I think that it's really important sometimes to step back and just look at where you can make those improvements and where you're wasting time on things that shouldn't be happening. So, for example, using Team Taylor, we're able to, the candidates can book their own interviews in with the clients, or they can book the screening calls in with the recruiters. And to be honest, that probably took me 8 years to realise that there was technology out there that could do that. I just have never thought of it. And it's things like that. I think take a step back and look at the way you're running things is super important. We've talked about this already, but invest time creating those relationships, because when people trust you, they're much more likely to go forward for your, the opportunities and the roles that you're putting in front of them. I think that's super important. I think for the graduates, what would I say? I think I would say don't be afraid to, don't be afraid to speak up if you think an opportunity isn't right for you. We're here to support you and make sure that there is a match in interest. So I think sometimes what we've seen with the students in the academy is that if there isn't that match in values and interests, eventually, other things might be right, but there is that disconnect, and then their heads could be turned. And I think another thing I would say is probably around, like an element of professionalism sometimes. If the opportunity isn't right for you, or if if you know that you're not interested in going forward for the interview, just let us know. It doesn't matter. We can still keep working with you. But I think sometimes there's this fear of, I won't say anything, and then it all goes to pot. I think, just keep a focus on that.
Ghosting's much worse. Ghosting is much worse than actually just saying, I don't want to do it. You're much...
But, both sides know not to ghost. That's a top tip. No ghosting.
No ghosting. Sadly, it happens all the time, but yeah. Well, Alex, it's been amazing to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really enjoyed having a chat with you. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get hold of you?
You can email me on alex@sasleads.io or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Alex, thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks. Take care.